Welcome to Success Weekly with James Tharris, a weekly dose of thought-provoking ideas and helpful tips on improving your mindset. And now, here's your host, James Tharris.
Hello and welcome again to another episode of Success Weekly. I'm your host, James Tharris. Today's date is November the 1st, 2017, and it just boggles my mind at how fast this year has gone. We are already 10 months gone, and we're working on our last 2 months of the entire year. We are now in the holiday season. We had a fantastic Halloween, few days of Halloween. We had a Halloween party at the school, which was very well attended, and the attendees had a blast. We had a blast, lots of fun. And of course, then we set up for Halloween in our neighborhood. And the nice thing about it was that we haven't really had much of a Halloween presence in our neighborhoods over the past, let's say, 10 to 15 years, because the neighborhoods we lived in just didn't really have much in the way of kids coming by and knocking on the doors. So we got kind of jaded by the whole Halloween experience. There was, just nobody coming. So I really haven't spent much time doing any trick-or-treating with the kids in the neighborhood, because there were too few. I think in our Greenwood location, we probably had maybe 5 at the most for the entire evening, and we moved up to the Noblesville location for a short period of time before as our transition, and we did a rental house up there, and before we could move to Florida. And the same thing, we probably had 5 or 6 kids come the entire time that we did trick-or-treating. Whereas down in Florida, we had 70 degrees to start with, and then of course it moved down to about 60 degrees before the end of the evening. Still fantastic weather. It was a very different experience than I'm used to, because I'm used to either snow or rain, and every so often we'd get a halfway decent temperature. So it was nice to be able to sit out in front of the house and watch the kids come by and things. And we have several of our neighbors that really decorated their houses really to the T. They really did a fantastic job and made it a lot of fun on our block, including a full-fledged haunted house that you could walk through for free, and another kind of a haunted house that was created like a haunted house, but it wasn't meant to walk through, just to walk by. And they just went all out on it, and it had sound effects and a box with chains rattling and a car that had run over a dead body and things. I mean, this kind of sounds gruesome, but it was very cool. And they had all these lights up, and then of course our neighbors across the street have these little projectors that project ghosts and things onto their house. And it's been really was a really nice, fun experience, and getting out to chat with the neighbors and things yesterday. So a lot of fun, and lots of candy got given out, and even sampled a couple of them myself by the end of the night, which I don't normally do because it's not Saturday, and that's the day that I allow myself to eat those things. So I gave myself maybe an extra day to have a few pieces of candy as well to enjoy the holiday. So anyway, that's kind of what's going on. We've got our first martial arts birthday party we're going to be doing this Saturday. That's coming up. Still working on getting the final touches on my book ready, so that should be ready very soon. And then we've got our Student Appreciation Day sale coming up a week from this coming Saturday for our current members, as our way of thanking them for choosing our school to train at. So we give them a big discount on lots of things, and we offer things that we don't offer at any other time of the year, as a special way of saying thanks. And I think that's one of the things that I wanted to include here, and it really should be a separate podcast, and probably will be. And in fact, I know that it will be, because I've been working on it a little bit, but I'm not totally ready to deliver that one yet. And that maybe we'll do that for next week, and that's on being thankful. The success principle is involved there. Being thankful is a very powerful mechanism for your mind, and if you learn how to be thankful, you can really supercharge your life. So anyway, I'll talk more about that probably next week, or maybe the following week, since this is the month of being thankful and Thanksgiving. But today I wanted to talk about another success concept that I personally use frequently, and it just really resonated with me yesterday, because I finally had a day that I didn't have to do anything. One day where I was totally alone, and with my wife and I, we were alone and didn't have to go anywhere, didn't have to be anywhere, with the exception of being out front for the trick-or-treaters later in the afternoon. So the success principle I'm speaking of course, is downtime. Now, there are a lot of differing opinions on how much downtime a person needs, and what I say to that is, you have to figure out your ideal amount of downtime. Now, you don't have to figure it out exactly to the minute or anything, but does that require? Is it a few hours? Does that suffice for you? Is it a day, or is it 2 days that you need to do that? And if you study that a little bit, study the effects on your stress and other areas of your life, then you'll be able to figure out what kind of downtime you need and start to learn to schedule it a little bit. The brain's a lot like a computer, and if it just runs continuously, and especially if it's being multitasked, which is sometimes what we're doing, we're doing things in the background. So for me, I might be doing a video rendering on one screen, and then on the other screen I'm doing a Google search for something else, and listening to a podcast in the background, and I've got 2 or 3 or 4 things going on at the same time, and so it starts to drain the CPU, which is the central processing unit, which is very much like our brains. And there's only a limit to how much of our brains can be stretched in different directions before the inevitable crash comes. And so we need to learn how to refresh our computer, our brains, because that's it works the same way. And so I can tell you this because really for the past 2 weeks I haven't had a single day off where I had time to myself for anything. It was one thing after another. We had 5 or 6 guests come in for 2 to 3 days each time, and a couple of guests that came in to take us out for lunch, and we spent the afternoon with them, which puts us a little bit behind in work, which I'm not complaining about by any means, but it is a fact, though, when you go do things like that you've got work that needs to be done, and now it has to be pushed back a little bit, and everything is kind of bing bang boom, and it's pretty much been Sunday through Sunday every single day for the past 14 days that I've either been traveling, or I've had guests in, or doing something at the school here for the business, which we don't really have any choice. We have to do these things. We're in the beginning phases of the business, and part of being successful in a new endeavor is realizing that it takes a lot of work to get it moving up front, kind of like what they call the flywheel principle. So a flywheel is what the old propeller airplanes, how they run. Instead of a jet, they have a big propeller on the front, and it might take a lot of strength to get that flywheel turned in the very beginning. We're talking some of the older ones now. And then, of course, when you got it to turn 1 or 2 times, you'd hear the engine catch in, and it would run maybe 2 or 3 times around and maybe sputter out again. And then you'd have to get back in there and push hard and push with lots of force to get it to move around one more time and one more time and one more time. And finally, once the flywheel gets moving, the centrifugal force takes over and the engine takes over and it keeps it running. So and really that's how everything works in the beginning, is getting that flywheel running. So that's what we're doing in the business right now. And so that means that we've got to sacrifice some of our personal time, sacrifice some of our sleep, sacrifice some of our finances, sacrifice whatever it takes in order to become successful. And once we get the flywheel turning, then we'll be able to back off a little bit and pick and choose what we're going to do and when we're going to do it, and be able to schedule in more downtime. So the reason I say this is because for the past 2 weeks we've had 0 downtime, and I've noticed it. My last class Thursday night Monday night. Tonight is Wednesday. Today's Wednesday, so we were closed yesterday. But Monday night, which was my very last class of the week so far, I felt like the entire day I was kind of off in my teaching a little bit. I didn't feel like I normally did, and I believe that was because I had no time to prepare and to mentally get ready for it and relax and recharge. And so I think that it affected me. Now, I did mention at the end of the night, I'm glad that's over. I didn't feel like I did a great job tonight. And both my wife and one of our guests, both said, I thought it went very well. So that could be more, in my mind. But nonetheless, that's still how I felt. and I know that I was off at least a little bit because I've had no time to relax and recharge. And it's kind of like your cell phone or your tablet or whatever. When you keep running it runs hot, and then finally the battery wears out, and it just says, hey, I'm not going to start up again until I have enough time to cool down and get a break and get a recharge of this battery. And until that's done, I'm just not going to be doing anything for you. That's your cell phone sometimes. So unless you've got a backup battery or two or three of them to keep plugging in, eventually those will wear out, and you're going to have to recharge it. And it also helps with your computer when you're experiencing difficulties with your phone not working correctly, or your computer. The very first thing that you should do is to restart it, which basically refreshes all of the drivers in the system and gives them a chance to regroup and reorganize. And then when it starts up, a lot of times the problem that you were having is gone. And our brains work the same way. So remember, your brain is like a computer, and it needs to be refreshed just like a computer or a phone does. It's kind of like a bank account. If you have a bank account and you've saved up $100, and you take $1 today, and then $2 tomorrow, and $3 the next day, and $5 the next day, and then 50 cents the next day, there's eventually going to come a point where, unless you put more in, you're going to run out of having anything to remove from your piggy bank or your bank account. And you have to continue to put deposits into it as well. So that's what taking downtime is. It's a deposit on your energy. You're refilling your energy. It's kind of like a solar panel. The sun charges the solar panels, and the solar panels then can utilize the energy to power whatever they're powering. And then there comes a point where the energy is discharged, then it has to recharge again. So everything in life works like this. And if we continue to stress it and push it to the red line, the breaking point, that's exactly what will happen. Is things will break down, and that becomes our health. That becomes physical health and or mental or emotional health as well. So look at some of the Hollywood stars, or the very, very famous people or singers and things that go out on tour and night after night after night, and then they have to get back in the studio and record records, and then they've got personal appearances to make and all these things. Occasionally, you'll have situations that, like a Britney Spears or a Mariah Carey episode, or I can't think of the other, Winona Ryder, things like that, where they get themselves in trouble, and it seems like they're having they kind of went berserk. A lot of times it's because they didn't take enough downtime for themselves. And so it's the same for you and I. So it's important that we have to refill our mental and emotional bank accounts, and that's what having downtime does for us. So it's important that you schedule it into your week. If you're not doing that right now, and you're just hit and miss on that, I highly recommend that you find one day per week that you don't do anything. You just totally relax, and don't do any work at home. And don't do any work on your work. Don't talk about work. Don't think about work. Don't check emails. None of those kind of things. And for me, that day is Sunday. It's an ideal day. It's built into the calendar. And I remember as a kid, it's very different nowadays, but when I was a kid growing up, hardly any place was open. Church was open, and that might have been about it. There really wasn't a lot of there really weren't a lot of businesses open on Sunday for you to go and enjoy, like restaurants. Most of them were closed. Stores, most of them were closed, although I can't remember whether grocery stores were open or closed back then. I think that maybe they were even closed. But as we've become more competitive, and in the business world, it's all about making money, so the business owners decided, hey, we're going to start, like for instance, coming up is this used to be Black Friday. Now it's been Gray Thursday, and they've turned it into that, from that to another, a week before that, and then the Monday after that is Cyber Monday, and they're trying to stretch out the money making season as long as they can, which then creates more need for employees, which then take employees away from their families on holidays or on Sundays, and this is kind of a vicious circle or vicious cycle, and so we've got to be careful about that. So I think Sundays, those are my sacred days, and occasionally I'll have to give one up, as I did this last Sunday, to go pick up a visitor that came in. But nonetheless, we didn't really do any work that day, so it was a little bit of downtime, but still I was in charge of somebody else's transportation and entertainment, and normally what I would be doing was laying in bed watching binge watching a series that I enjoy, or just checking email or playing a game. Actually, not checking email. Excuse me, that's on Sunday. I don't do that. So maybe playing some games on my phone or whatever. Just relaxing, going out, sitting by the pool, and doing nothing. That's great for your mental recharge. So I highly recommend Sundays for you. So. As I mentioned earlier, the stress. We all have a certain amount of stress, and we also have a stress threshold. So when you reach your stress threshold, that's when you become very short-tempered. And if the kids happen to ask the wrong question at the wrong time, during one of those times, that's when you tend to snap at the kids, or you snap at your spouse. And it really has nothing to do with them. It has more to do with you and being on mental and emotional overload. And so it's kind of like when you don't get enough sleep. Oftentimes we're extra grouchy. A lot of things that normally wouldn't bother us do bother us, and so that's why getting some scheduled downtime in and on a regular basis is so highly important. If you get the amount of downtime that you need, which usually is 1 to 2 days per week, is pretty average for most people. That might be Saturday and Sunday, and for me it's usually Friday and Sunday, or sometimes it's just Sunday. Today or yesterday it happened to be Tuesday because of Halloween. We had a holiday, so those are great times to take those hours and just don't do anything. Read a book for enjoyment, not for business purposes. Read a book for enjoyment. Watch a movie. Go see a movie. Go to the beach. Go out and take a walk. Whatever's speaking to you at the moment. All right. So it's the same as working out. If you work out 6 days per week and all you're doing are curls, which are meant to build the biceps. If you do that 7 days per week, you aren't going to build any massive biceps. You're going to tear down your body, because that's what happens when you work out. Is you actually tear the muscles, and then during the rest and recovery phase, that's when your body goes into the adaptation phase and makes the muscles grow stronger so that they can handle more stress. So if you continue to stress the muscle day after day after day after day, it's really doing you a disservice. It's doing the opposite of what you're trying to do. So yes, you have to get out of your comfort zone, which is in lifting weight terms, doing the reps until you feel the burn, and then maybe doing a little bit more and taking yourself to the point of exhaustion and maybe a little bit past that. But then that's when you have to step back and rest and don't work those muscles again for a day or 2 days or 3 days, whatever however your body talks to you, and you have to listen to it. And when you take that downtime and you get your rest and recovery, that's when the muscles grow stronger and allow you to do more. Well, it's the same way with your emotional health, your mental health, your physical health, and just your general overall health. So if you're going to be a healthy individual and you're going to be a successful individual, you've got to schedule in some downtime, and you've got to get it whenever and wherever you possibly can. And that's so a few examples. Getting enough sleep. That's your daily downtime. A lot of people don't get enough sleep, and in fact most people don't get enough sleep, and that creates a lot of extra stress, and eventually your body says, hey, you know what, buddy, if you're not going to get me enough rest, I'm eventually going to make you sick. I'm going to give you an illness by weakening your immune system, and things that would normally not bother you, a common cold or the flu or whatever, I'm going to give you one of these things and force you to stop doing all this stuff you're doing, so you have to stay in bed for 2 or 3 days and recover. That's nature, and your body will do that if you don't do it on your own. Somehow, in some way, it'll happen. All right. I also recommend taking an occasional vacation, and that might be sometimes a 7-day or 14-day vacation, or maybe even a month vacation if you have the time and finances to make that happen. Or it could just be a simple weekend vacation or even a day vacation, sometimes known as a staycation, where you just stay home and you take a vacation from everything. Don't do the dishes. Don't do the laundry. There's going to be plenty more time to do those kind of things. Don't do any cleaning. Just sit and relax and recharge and only do things that bring you joy. Now, if cleaning brings you joy, have at it. Another thing I recommend highly, which is one of the things I practice myself, take a bath instead of a shower. A shower is kind of a quick thing. It's something that in modern times has become more and more common, but I think that in many ways it can be a counterproductive activity. Yes, it's nice to jump in the shower and jump out, quickly when you're in a hurry. But if you have the opportunity to sit and soak in a nice hot bath with a good book, or just with your thoughts, meditating, that's a fantastic way to recharge each and every day. And it's something I do as often as possible. I'm pretty good at doing it 7 days per week, but occasionally when I'm traveling, I may not be able to have the opportunity to get up and take a bath. If, for instance, I'm going to be flying out at 6:30 in the morning, I get up at 5:30 in the morning, and maybe I don't feel like taking a bath. I need a quick shower, in and out, and get breakfast and get moving. So there are times when you have to sacrifice that. Also, getting a massage. If you get a massage, I recommend getting a massage at least once per month. It's a very relaxing experience, and if you find the right masseuse, they can find the muscle groups that have the most tension in them and help to relieve that tension. And there may be tension you don't even realize you've got, and they'll find it, and when they find it, you'll know. And if you do that regularly, your body will start to respond to that massage in a much more positive way over the course of a period of time. So highly recommended you get yourself a massage. I used to have a membership at Massage Envy that was purchased for my wife and I. We had a free, I don't know if it was a 3-month or it was a 1 year or something, or maybe it was just a 1 month membership to Massage Envy, and we loved it so much that we became members, and went for probably 2 years before we moved from Indianapolis to Florida, and haven't got back to that. But we are still getting massages, just not at Massage Envy. So my chiropractor, which is another place I highly recommend you go and visit, get yourself a really good chiropractor, because they'll do some pops and cracks that will help alleviate stress and put your body's bones back in alignment and help you function at a higher level. But a lot of them offer massage therapy as well, so I highly recommend that. And if you don't have the time or interest in that, and you're whatever, I recommend getting a massage chair. Something my wife bought for me many years ago was one of the cheaper version was about $800 from Sharper Image. It was called an iJoy. I'm not sure if they even have that model anymore or not, but I still have it and I still use it to this day. And if I have 2 or 3 days in a row where my back is really tight, I know it's because I'm not getting enough downtime, and it's because I've got some extra stress. And so I'll sit in that chair for a couple of days in a row for 20 minutes or so, and sometimes I'll even sit in it for 2 to 3 sessions, so up to an hour, and let that thing massage my entire back from the top of my neck down to the bottom of my back. And it's a great way to rest and recharge, because you really can't do a lot when you're sitting in a massage chair except for sit there and just relax. Finally, I recommend getting out into nature more. It's very important. I don't care where you live, there's something available for you to get out in nature. If it's just getting outside and smelling the clean, crisp, fresh air, do that. If it snows outside, there's a lot of beauty in the snow. Get out and walk in that. If you're in a place like me where the weather's always beautiful and you've got the ability to go sit by the ocean and just let the ocean waves roll in, it's a very relaxing recharge for you. But get out and walk and ride a bike. I don't recommend going out in a car unless you absolutely have to. It's much more relaxing for you to get out and use your body. So get out and walk or ride a bike or go sit by the water, go fishing, do something that's part of nature, because we come from nature. We're ashes to ashes, dust to dust, right? So it's important that we don't stay cooped up inside our houses all the time, and we get outside and experience nature and get some of that cool, clean, fresh air into our systems so that we can deal with stress better and we can refresh and recharge. So that's it, guys. That's the message this week. Is if you're not doing it yet, get yourself some downtime, and it'll amaze you as how much that will help you have a better outlook on life and how much more successful that'll make you. So until next time, this is James Theris saying, be successful and take some downtime.
That's all for this week. Tune in next week for another episode of Success Weekly. Do you have an idea you'd like James to talk about in an upcoming episode? Post your comments and be sure to share this podcast with friends.